The phone call came at 9 on a Tuesday night. I was in my apartment grading papers when my mother's number flashed across the screen. "We need $30,000, she said without greeting. "Your father made some bad investments. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." I set down my pen, my stomach dropping. "Mom, I don't have that kind of money. I'm a teacher. My entire savings is maybe $8,000. Then get a loan. Use credit cards. We raised you for 26 years. This is the least you can do. I can't take on debt like that. It would ruin my credit. So you're choosing yourself over family?" Her voice went cold. "After everything we've done for you? This isn't about choosing. I physically don't have access to that money. Then you're useless to us." She hung up. I stared at my phone, confusion mixing with hurt. That couldn't be it. That couldn't be how that conversation ended. 10 minutes later, my father called. "Pack your things. You have until Friday to get out of the house." "What?" "I don't live with you anymore. I have my own apartment. The apartment we're paying for. The car we bought you. All of it goes back if you won't help your family. Dad, please. Friday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." He hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment, the one I'd thought was mine, realizing how little control I'd ever had over my own life. By Saturday, I'd moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town. The place was tiny, with peeling wallpaper and a bathroom that had seen better decades. But it was $200 a month cheaper than anywhere else, and I could afford it on my teaching salary without my parents' help. I'd left behind the car, the furniture they'd bought, anything they could claim ownership of. I took my clothes, my laptop, and my grandmother's ring. Everything else stayed. My new studio had a mattress on the floor and a folding table I'd found on the curb. I owned 3 plates, 2 bowls, and 1 pot. My entire life had been reduced to what fit in my old Honda Civic, the one car I'd bought myself. That first night, I cried on my mattress, feeling the weight of betrayal settle into my bones. 26 years of being their daughter, and I'd been reduced to a potential ATM. When I couldn't provide money, I became disposable. I thought about my childhood. My older brother Marcus had always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. I'd been the one who worked hard, got good grades, tried to earn approval that never came. Now I understood. They'd never seen me as a daughter. They'd seen me as an investment, and when I couldn't pay returns, they'd cut their losses. The first few weeks in the studio were brutal. I worked my teaching job during the day, then picked up shifts at a coffee shop on weekends. Every dollar counted. Every expense was calculated. The rage built slowly, not in explosive bursts but in a cold, focused determination. I wasn't angry in the way that made me want to yell or break things. I was angry in the way that made me want to succeed so completely that my parents would have to see what they'd thrown away. I started researching at night. Personal finance blogs. Investment strategies. Real estate forums. I consumed information like I was studying for the most important test of my life. My brother called once. "Mom says you're being dramatic about this whole thing." Dramatic? They kicked me out because I couldn't give them $30,000 I don't have. Well, maybe if you'd been smarter with money. "Marcus, I make $38,000 a year as a teacher. Where exactly should I have gotten $30,000? "I don't know." "That's your problem." He hung up. The family I'd been born into was toxic, and I'd been too close to see it clearly. Now, from my tiny studio with its peeling wallpaper, I could see everything with perfect clarity. They'd made a mistake kicking me out. They just didn't know it yet. My friend Tessa found me crying in my classroom after school one Friday. She was the art teacher down the hall, and we'd become close over the past year. "What happened?" She sat down beside me. I told her everything. The phone call, the eviction from my apartment, my parents' complete dismissal of me as a person. Tessa listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker. "That's financial abuse," she said when I finished. "You know that, right? They're my parents." "Doesn't matter. They controlled your housing, your transportation, probably your bank account too. Then when you couldn't give them money, they cut you off completely. That's abuse." I'd never thought of it that way. What do I do? You survive. You build something they can never touch. And eventually, you show them exactly what they lost when they threw you away. She squeezed my hand. "But first, you need a better plan than just working yourself to death." Tessa became my sounding board over the following weeks. She'd grown up poor and worked her way through college and art school. She understood hustle in ways my privileged upbringing had never taught me. "You need leverage," she said over coffee one Saturday. "Something that generates income without trading hours for dollars. Have you thought about investing? With what money? Start small. Research everything. Play the long game." She smiled. "And when you're ready, make them regret ever underestimating you." The job posting appeared in my inbox 3 months after I'd moved into the studio. Administrative assistant at Cornerstone Real Estate. It paid $12,000 more than teaching, with room for advancement. I applied without hesitation. Teaching had been my dream, but dreams didn't pay bills or build leverage. I needed to learn how money really worked, and real estate seemed like the fastest path. The interview went better than expected. The office manager, a woman named Patricia who reminded me of Tessa, asked about my background. "I'm a teacher currently, but I'm looking to transition into real estate and property management. I'm interested in learning the business from the ground up." Why the sudden career change? I chose honesty. I realized I need to understand how wealth is built. Teaching is fulfilling, but it's not going to give me financial independence. Real estate will. Patricia hired me on the spot. I like people who know what they want and aren't afraid to work for it. "You start Monday." The job was exactly what I needed. I answered phones, filed paperwork, and learned everything I could about property values, mortgages, rental yields, and market trends. I stayed late, asked questions, and absorbed information like a sponge. Within 3 months, I understood more about real estate than most people learn in years. Patricia noticed and started giving me more responsibility. "You're good at this," she said. "Keep it up, and there's a path to becoming an agent." 6 months into my real estate job, Patricia promoted me to junior property manager. The pay increase wasn't huge, but it came with something more valuable: insider knowledge about investment properties before they hit the market. I'd been saving aggressively, cutting my expenses to the bone. No eating out, no entertainment subscriptions, no unnecessary purchases. Every spare dollar went into savings. I'd accumulated $11,000. Patricia called me into her office one Tuesday. "There's a property coming up. Small house, needs work, but it's in a neighborhood that's starting to turn around. The owner wants a quick sale. I think you should look at it. I don't have enough for a down payment on a house. You have more than you think. FHA loans require as little as 3.5% down for first-time buyers. On a $60,000 house, that's $2,100. Add in closing costs, you're looking at about $7,000 total." I stared at her. "You're saying I could actually buy a house?" "A house that needs work, yes. But if you're willing to put in sweat equity and rent it out, you could start building wealth. Real wealth, not just a paycheck." That weekend, I looked at the property. It was a 2-bedroom bungalow with outdated everything, but the bones were solid. The neighborhood was transitioning from rough to up and coming. I made an offer that was accepted the next day. 30 days later, I owned my first property. I spent every weekend for 3 months renovating that house. Tessa helped me paint. YouTube taught me basic plumbing and electrical work. I learned to tile, to refinish floors, to update fixtures on a budget. The house transformed from a dated wreck into a charming rental property. I listed it for $900 a month and had 5 applications within a week. My first tenant moved in on a Saturday. That night, lying on my studio apartment mattress, I calculated my numbers. After mortgage, taxes, and insurance, I cleared $200 a month in profit. $200 didn't sound like much, but it represented something bigger. I'd created income that didn't require my time. The property worked for me while I worked my job. Patricia was impressed. You did that fast. Most people take years to buy their first property. I don't have years to waste. Good. Because there's another property coming up. Are you interested? I was always interested. I refinanced my first property 6 months later, pulling out equity to use as a down payment on the second house. Then I did it again. Within a year of buying my first property, I owned 3 rental houses. My monthly profit was $800, enough to leave the studio and rent a decent apartment. But I stayed. Every dollar I saved was a dollar I could invest. The phone call came 18 months after they'd kicked me out. My mother's number appeared on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. We need to talk, she said without preamble. About what? Your father and I are in a difficult situation. We're going to lose the house. We were hoping you might have some money saved now that you're working in real estate. The audacity was stunning. You kicked me out for not having $30,000. Now you're asking me for money again? We're your parents. You owe us. I don't owe you anything. My voice was calm, cold. You made it clear that our relationship is transactional. Well, I'm not interested in the transaction. How can you be so cruel? I learned from the best. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked my father's. Then Marcus's. If they wanted to treat me like an ATM, they could deal with an out-of-service message. Tessa called that evening. I told her about the conversation. How do you feel? She asked. Free. For the first time in my life, I feel completely free. Good. Because you're building something amazing. Don't let them pull you back into their dysfunction. She was right. I was building something they could never touch, never control, never take away. And I was just getting started. My network expanded rapidly over the next several months. Patricia introduced me to investors, contractors, and other real estate professionals. I attended every networking event, every property auction, every investment seminar I could find. A man named Harrison became an informal mentor. He owned 40 rental properties and understood the business inside and out. The key is leverage, he explained over coffee one morning. Use the bank's money to buy assets that appreciate and generate income. Then use that income to buy more assets. It's a cycle that builds wealth faster than any job ever could. What about risk? There's always risk. But buying in good neighborhoods, maintaining properties well, screening tenants carefully, that mitigates most of it. I absorbed everything Harrison taught me. Property valuation, market analysis, cash flow calculations, tax strategies. The financial world I'd once found intimidating became my second language. Another mentor, a woman named Carolina who owned a property management company, taught me the operational side. It's not just about buying properties. It's about systems. How you screen tenants, how you maintain buildings, how you handle problems. That's what separates successful investors from broke ones. With mentors guiding me, my confidence grew. I wasn't just stumbling through real estate. I was building an actual business, with strategies and systems that worked. Property number 4 was a turning point. It was a foreclosure, a 3-bedroom house that the bank was desperate to sell. I'd saved enough for the down payment and closed on it 3 weeks after it listed. This house was different from my previous purchases. It was in a better neighborhood, worth more, and would rent for $1,400 a month. After expenses, I'd clear $450 in profit. The day the tenant signed the lease, I sat in my car outside the property and let myself feel proud. 2 years ago, I'd been crying on a mattress in a studio apartment. Now I owned 4 properties worth over $200,000 combined. My monthly profit from all properties was $1,500. Combined with my salary, I was making more than I'd ever imagined possible. But I still lived in the studio apartment. I still drove my old Honda. I still packed my lunch and cut my own hair. Every dollar that didn't go to necessities went into my next investment. Tessa asked me once if I was ever going to enjoy my success. Not yet, I said. There's one more thing I need to do first. She understood without me explaining. Some victories required complete and total dominance. Anything less wouldn't satisfy the betrayal I'd experienced. A cousin I barely knew reached out through social media. "Hey, I heard you're doing real estate now. That's so cool. How's it going?" We'd never been close, but I appreciated the genuine interest in her message. We met for coffee, and I explained what I'd been building. "Wait, you own 4 rental properties? That's incredible. It's been a lot of work, but yes. And you started this after." She trailed off, uncomfortable mentioning my parents. "After they kicked me out." "Yes. They're idiots," she said bluntly. "Everyone in the family thinks so, by the way. Not that anyone has the guts to say it to their faces." "What's the family narrative?" "That you're ungrateful and selfish for not helping them." But cousin Alexis and I did the math. "You were making teacher money when they demanded $30,000. The whole family knows that was insane." It was validating to know that not everyone believed my parents' version of events. "Are they okay financially?" "No. From what I hear, things are getting worse. Your dad keeps making bad investments trying to fix the first bad investments. It's a mess." I felt a twinge of something, not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. They were destroying themselves without any help from me. All I had to do was stay out of their way. Property number 5 was my first purely profit-driven purchase. I'd learned enough to spot undervalued properties, negotiate aggressively, and close deals quickly. This house needed minimal work but was priced low because the seller was divorcing and wanted out fast. I offered cash, closed in 2 weeks, and had a tenant moved in a month later. My total monthly profit from 5 properties was now $2,200. More than half my teaching salary, generated passively while I worked my real estate job. I made small improvements to my life. I bought new clothes for work. I got a smartphone to replace my ancient flip phone. I started eating out once a week. But I still lived in the studio. Still drove the Honda. Still saved aggressively. Harrison noticed my reluctance to upgrade my lifestyle. "You're allowed to enjoy your success, you know." "I will. When I'm done." "Done with what?" I didn't answer, but he seemed to understand. Some people hustled for wealth. Others hustled for vindication. I was in the second category, and there was a specific target I was aiming for. The family Christmas gathering happened at my aunt's house. I hadn't planned to attend, but cousin Alexis convinced me it would be worth it just to see my parents' faces when they saw how well I was doing. I arrived fashionably late, wearing one of my new professional outfits. My parents were in the living room, looking older and more tired than I remembered. My mother saw me first. Her expression flickered through surprise, disapproval, and something that might have been regret. "Caitlin. I didn't think you'd come. Alexis invited me." My father approached, his voice stern. "We need to talk about your attitude. You can't keep ignoring our calls." "Actually, I can. You kicked me out, remember? I'm just respecting the boundaries you established. We're family. Family helps each other. Funny how family only matters when you need something." My mother jumped in. "We're in serious financial trouble. We might lose the house. Surely you have some money saved by now?" "I do. But it's not available for you. How can you be so selfish?" Her voice rose, and relatives started staring. The same way you were selfish when you kicked out your daughter for not having $30,000 she'd never earned. I learned from the best. I left shortly after, feeling no satisfaction in the confrontation. Just tired certainty that they would never change, never understand, never acknowledge their role in our broken relationship. The housing market shifted in my favor 6 months later. Property values in the neighborhoods where I owned rentals jumped 15%. My properties were now worth substantially more than I'd paid. I refinanced again, pulling equity from my properties to buy 3 more houses over 4 months. My portfolio expanded to 8 properties, generating $3,800 monthly profit. Patricia offered me a position as a full property manager with her company, handling other people's investment properties for a fee. The job came with a substantial raise and more flexibility. I accepted immediately. The position gave me access to even more opportunities and expanded my network further. Tessa took me out to celebrate. "You're doing it. You're actually building an empire." "Not an empire. Just security. Independence. It's more than that. You're proving something." She was right. Every property I bought, every dollar I earned, every month of profit was proof that I was worth more than my parents had ever acknowledged. I was building a life they couldn't touch, success they couldn't claim credit for, wealth they couldn't access. And I was positioning myself to be in their lives in a way they'd never expected. The holiday gathering the following year was tense from the moment I arrived. My parents had aged noticeably, stress etched into their faces. Marcus was there with his wife, looking uncomfortable. My mother pulled me aside. "We heard you're doing well in real estate." "I'm doing fine. We need help. Your father's made some mistakes, and we're about to lose the house for real this time. I'm begging you, Caitlin. Please help us." "Why should I?" "Because we're your parents. We raised you. And then you kicked me out when I couldn't solve your financial problems. Why is it different now?" "We were upset. We made a mistake. You made a choice. And now you're living with the consequences." My father approached, his voice harder. "If you don't help us, we'll lose everything. Is that what you want?" "What I want is for you to handle your own financial problems the way you expected me to handle them when I was making $38,000 a year." I walked away, feeling the eyes of the entire family on me. Some looked sympathetic. Others judged me for not helping. I didn't care. Their opinions had never mattered before. They certainly didn't matter now. By my 3rd year in real estate, I owned 12 rental properties. My monthly profit was $6,500, more than my annual salary when I'd been teaching. I finally moved out of the studio apartment, but not into luxury. I rented a modest 2-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. I upgraded my car to a newer used model. I started traveling occasionally. But I still lived well below my means, still saved aggressively, still focused on expansion. Harrison was impressed. "You've built in 3 years what takes most investors 10. What's your secret?" "Motivation. I have a very specific goal." "Which is?" "You'll see when I reach it." The truth was, I was waiting for one specific opportunity. My parents lived in a neighborhood I'd been watching for 2 years. Property values had declined due to economic downturns, making houses more affordable. I'd been strategically buying in that area, slowly building a presence. I now owned 4 properties within a mile of my parents' house. And I was waiting for the right moment to make my final move. The call came from a foreclosure attorney I'd been working with. "There's a property coming up you might be interested in. It's in that neighborhood you've been targeting." "What's the address?" He told me, and I felt my stomach flip. It was my parents' house. They're 3 months behind on mortgage payments. The bank is foreclosing. The property will go to auction next month. "What's the estimated value?" "They owe $220,000. The house is probably worth $180 in current condition. Bank will likely accept less just to clear the asset." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in my car, processing what this meant. My parents were about to lose their house. And I had the financial means to buy it. Tessa called that evening. I told her about the opportunity. Are you going to do it? I don't know. Is it revenge if I'm just buying a property at market value? Is it revenge or is it justice? There's a difference. I thought about that for days. Revenge would be buying the house and evicting them immediately, humiliating them publicly, making them suffer. Justice would be offering them a chance to stay, but on my terms. As my tenants. I decided on justice. The auction was on a Tuesday morning. I arrived early, dressed professionally, carrying all necessary documentation. My parents weren't there. Most homeowners don't attend their own foreclosure auctions. The bidding started at $160,000. 2 other investors were interested. I bid strategically, not showing desperation, letting them drive the price up before coming in with my final offer. $175,000, I said clearly. The auctioneer looked around. Any other bids? Going once. Going twice. Sold to bidder number 12. I wrote the check for the down payment, my hands steady despite my racing heart. The property that my parents had kicked me out to protect was now mine. The ultimate irony wasn't lost on me. At a family gathering the following week, I revealed my acquisition. My aunt had invited me to dinner, and most of the extended family was there. My parents sat stiffly in the corner. I have some news, I announced. I've been building a real estate portfolio over the past 3 years. I now own 15 properties generating substantial monthly income. Shocked faces turned toward me. My mother went pale. In fact, I just purchased my 15th property. A lovely 4-bedroom in Riverside. I looked directly at my parents. I believe you're familiar with the address. The silence was deafening. My father stood abruptly. You bought our house? Your former house. The bank foreclosed. I bought it at auction. You can't do this. I already did. All legal, all by the book. The property is mine. My mother's voice was small. What are you going to do? I'm going to do what any landlord would do. Offer you the option to rent. Rent our own house? It's not your house anymore, Mom. It's mine. But I'm willing to rent it to you at fair market value. $1,800 a month. My father's face turned red. That's robbery. The mortgage was only $1,500. The mortgage you couldn't afford to pay. $1,800 is the current rental rate for a 4-bedroom house in that neighborhood. I checked. We can't afford that. Then you have 30 days to vacate. Those are your options. My mother started crying. Marcus looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. The rest of the family watched the drama unfold in stunned silence. I felt no joy in their humiliation, but I felt no guilt either. They'd made their choices. Now they had to live with the consequences. My parents took the rental option. They had nowhere else to go, and moving would cost money they didn't have. On the first of the month, they paid me $1,800 in rent for the house they'd once owned. I was professional about it. I gave them a proper lease, maintained the property according to code, responded to repair requests promptly. I was a good landlord, better than many. But the power dynamic had completely flipped. They were now dependent on me for their housing. Me, the daughter they'd thrown away like garbage when I couldn't solve their financial problems. Tessa asked if it felt like victory. It feels like closure, I said. They can't hurt me anymore. They have no power over me. And they have to face every month that their daughter, the one they called useless, is their landlord. The irony was perfect. They demanded $30,000 I didn't have. Now they paid me $1,800 monthly, money I used to buy more properties, building wealth they'd never achieve. Harrison had been right about leverage. I'd used theirs, their arrogance, their dismissal of me, as fuel to build something they couldn't touch. The arrangement continued for months. My parents paid rent on time, probably terrified I'd evict them if they didn't. We had minimal interaction. They paid through an online portal, and I handled maintenance through my property management company. Marcus called once. "Mom says you're being cruel." "I'm being a landlord." "That's not cruel. That's business. You could lower the rent. Help them out." "I could. But why would I? When I needed help, I got kicked out. Now that they need help, I'm supposed to be generous. You're really going to hold a grudge forever?" "It's not a grudge, Marcus. It's a boundary. They taught me that relationships in this family are transactional. So I'm keeping things transactional. They pay rent, I provide housing. Simple." He hung up frustrated. I didn't care. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. I was done seeking validation from my family. The extended family had mixed reactions. Some thought I was being vindictive. Others thought my parents deserved exactly what they got. I didn't engage with any of it. My life had moved beyond family drama. I was building something bigger, better, more meaningful than revenge. 2 years after buying my parents' house, I attended a family wedding. My parents were there, looking older and more defeated than ever. They'd aged rapidly under the stress of their financial situation. My mother approached me cautiously. "Can we talk?" "What about?" "I want to apologize. Your father and I, we made terrible mistakes. We didn't see your worth, and we treated you horribly when you couldn't solve our problems." "Okay. Is that all you have to say?" "What else is there to say, Mom? You apologized. I acknowledge it. But an apology doesn't undo 3 years of pain and betrayal. Can't we try to rebuild our relationship? Maybe someday. But right now, our relationship is landlord and tenant. That's what you chose when you kicked me out. We were desperate. So was I. But I didn't have parents to fall back on. I had to figure it out alone. And I did. My father joined us. You become hard, Caitlin." "No, Dad. I've become strong. There's a difference. Hard would be evicting you and letting you become homeless. Strong is maintaining boundaries while still treating you fairly." They had no response to that. The conversation ended, and I walked away feeling nothing but tired certainty that this was how things would always be. Cordial but distant. Professional but not personal. The full circle moment came when my parents received an eviction notice. Not from me. I'd never miss rent payments or violate a lease. But I'd sold the property to another investor as part of portfolio restructuring. The new owner wanted to renovate and increase rent beyond what my parents could afford. They had 60 days to find new housing. They called me in a panic. "You sold the house?" "Yes. It was a good business decision. The new owner paid above market value. Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my problem to solve. You're adults. Figure it out. Please, Caitlin. We need help. The way I needed help when you kicked me out. You told me it was my problem to solve. Now it's yours. We were wrong." "Yes, you were. But that doesn't obligate me to fix your mistakes." In the end, they moved into a small rental apartment across town. It was a 2-bedroom, nothing like the house they'd lost. They struggled to afford it on my father's pension and my mother's part-time income. I watched from a distance, not with satisfaction but with detached certainty that justice had been served. They'd spent years treating me as less than, as disposable, as a tool to solve their problems. Now they understood what it felt like to be powerless, to struggle, to have no one to turn to. I moved into a beautiful home 3 years after buying my first property. It was a 4-bedroom house I'd purchased as an investment, then decided to keep for myself. Custom renovations, modern finishes, a backyard garden I designed myself. The day I moved in, I stood in the empty living room and cried. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief and pride. This was mine. Truly, completely mine. Bought with money I'd earned, in a career I'd built, with success I'd created from nothing. My parents had tried to destroy me when I couldn't meet their demands. Instead, they'd freed me to become someone stronger than I'd ever imagined possible. I had 19 rental properties generating over $14,000 in monthly profit. I had a property management business that served other investors. I had wealth, security, and independence that couldn't be taken away. My parents were struggling in a small apartment, facing the consequences of decades of poor financial decisions and worse parenting choices. I'd won. Not through cruelty or revenge, but through sheer determination to succeed despite them rather than because of them. 5 years after that phone call demanding $30,000, I sat in my home office reviewing my portfolio. 23 properties, net worth over $2 million, financial freedom most people only dreamed of. My phone rang. My mother's number. I'd unblocked it years ago but rarely answered. This time I did. "Caitlin, I just wanted you to know, your father and I are proud of what you've built. We were wrong about everything. Thank you for saying that. Do you think we could ever have a real relationship again?" I thought about that question. Could I forgive them? Maybe someday. Could I trust them? Probably never. Did I want them in my life? That was complicated. "I don't know, Mom. What you did damaged something that might never be fully repaired. But I appreciate the acknowledgement. We understand. We just wanted you to know." After we hung up, I stood on my back deck watching the sunset. My parents' approval or disapproval no longer mattered. Their pride or disappointment couldn't touch me. I'd built a life entirely on my own terms, funded by my own effort, driven by their rejection. The best revenge truly was living well, and I was living better than I'd ever imagined possible. They'd kick me out for refusing to pay their debt. I'd become their landlord. They'd called me useless. I'd proven my worth in ways they'd never achieve. The final message was clear: you are worth more than how anyone treats you. Never let anyone take your power. And when they try to destroy you, let them watch you rise instead. I raised my glass to the setting sun, toasting my own resilience, my own strength, my own incredible journey from broken daughter to independent success. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt completely at peace.